According to supply managers in the 9 Mid-America states, how is the economy performing?
The overall reading was up slightly above growth neutral at 51.3, and that's up from May's 48.2. But what we're seeing is this up and down, vacillating around growth neutral, and that's much like what we're seeing in the national number. It's only the third time this year that the readings have been above growth neutral, and even when it's been above growth neutral, it's only been slightly above growth neutral. When it's been down below growth neutral, only slightly below growth neutral. So it's an odd year so far for 2024. We ask about reshoring. That would be bringing purchasing back from purchasing abroad to purchasing in the U.S. 6% of the businesses have reshored all their purchasing that was made abroad now in the U.S. 42%, on the other hand, have reshored a portion of purchasing from abroad. That's almost half, of course, of their purchasing from abroad a portion of it has been brought back to the U.S. And of course, that's a good signal in terms of supply chain purchasing. And here I'll bring up the graph of the readings over the past 18 months. And as you can see, the overall reading in their beautiful Creighton blue is up. And again, you see the zigzagging or saw blading up and down. And that's much like the U.S. number, which will come out later on this morning. And I expect it to probably be up as well, but only up slightly. The manufacturing sector in the U.S. is not doing well. It's moving sideways to down over 2024 so far.
What were the hiring trends?
Hiring not good either. The overall index, I shouldn't say the overall index, the hiring index for June was 44.0, and that's up slightly from May's 43.7, both readings well below growth neutral. But we have seen, when you look at the BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers, we've added about 1.8% jobs over the last 12 months. Now that's 1.8% of the total jobs. Manufacturing jobs, we've probably added nothing over the last year, 12 months. In fact, they're down. Number of responding companies, and in terms of looking at the readings from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, please keep in mind that the number of companies that have been responding is now moving lower and lower and lower every month, and that's, of course, makes you have questioned the BLS's numbers. High share of part-timers and dual job holders also in the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers, again, overstating the jobs that we're adding. And finally, the household survey. Now, there are two surveys, the household survey and the establishment survey. The household survey is showing job losses, even though the establishment survey is showing about 170 to 180,000 jobs. The household survey showing job losses. The regional, in terms of job openings, an important measure of the regional job market, the region has lost 250,000 job openings over the past 12 months. That's 26%. That's a downturn of 26% of the job openings, not of jobs, but job openings. All 9 states lost job openings. And we also ask about, well, what about remote work? 42% of the supply managers report they're working at least a portion of the week remotely. So that's much higher than I would expected. But the job market, again, is just not strong, at least according to our surveys.
What inflation trends are you noticing?
Inflation is still seeing elevated inflationary pressures. The inflation number for the month was at 61.4. Now that's well down from 70.8 in May, and that's good news. I still think we got too much inflationary pressures out there, but at least they're moving in the right direction, and that's down. Keep an eye on the month-to-month CPI numbers that come out from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The CPI for the all items CPI is annualized about 2.8% over the last 3 months. That's 3 months annualized. Of course, that's a bit too strong for the Fed. Fed wants 2%. The core is 3.6, well above the core, the Bureau of Labor Statistics goal of 2 percentage points. All items PPI, which is more representative of the sample that we're surveying on. We're surveying what's called the businesses at wholesale level. PPI, the Producer Price Index, or the Wholesale Price Index, for the last 3 months, up about 0.8% annualized. The core, on the other hand, up 2.8%. So both the core, both the CPI and the PPI are both, in the terms of the core, well above the Fed's target. And Fed's inflation rate goal still remains well above what the Fed's shooting for. So we've still got some miles to go before we can sleep in terms of the inflation gauge.
What is the economic outlook?
I expect a rate cut on September, the meetings on September the 18th and 17th and 18th. I'm going on record. This is, I think, the first time I've announced what I expect to be a rate cut since the Fed began increasing rates. Why are they cutting rates? Not because they defeated inflation, because the economy is weakening much too quickly. The U.S. economy, the regional economy, is much weaker than the Fed would like to see. They fear that more than they're going to fear inflation. The CPI month over month, I expect that to creep up at 0.2% for the June number when it's released in July. That's 0.2 percentage point. Now that multiply that by 12, you get 2.4%. So still above the growth, the Fed's target, but I think they will reduce interest rates. Long-term rates will move sideways to slightly higher. The prime rate will fall to 8.25% on September the 19th because of the Fed rate cut the day before. Keep an eye on the bond market if you're looking ahead, and everybody should be looking ahead. Keep an eye on the 10-year bond yield. If that yield moves below 4% down to 3.8%, that's a real recession concern. And I would say if it moves down like that, we're already in a recession or going to be in a recession. So if it goes back up to 4.8, then take my recession fear off the table. That's more inflation. On the meeting, the Fed meets on July the 30th and 31st. There will be no rate change at that meeting, although there will be some pressure to cut rates at that meeting. Keep an eye on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. That's the bonds they buy. It's called quantitative tightening right now. In other words, they've been selling bonds. They may, in fact, move sideways on that and not stop the selling and let things simmer down a bit. Simmer down meaning the inflation down, the job market down, the overall economy down. Keep an eye on the ISM readings. That's the number we released this morning. That's the PMIs. They come out. The national number comes out later on this morning. Again, it'll be still a weak number. Keep an eye on the price of a barrel of oil. That still remains a big component of what's going to be going on in terms of inflation. That's been moving in the right direction as well. That's down, but it's still going to move between probably $70 and $80 a barrel, which is not too bad. Listen to statements by the members of the Open Market Committee, that's Federal Reserve Open Market Committee, to get an idea of what's going to happen in terms of the Federal Reserve. And finally, watch out for the Freddie Mac. They're once again talking about entering the secondary market, mortgages, and that would be home equity lines for homeowners out there with first mortgages, and that's not going to help. That, in fact, that will fuel inflationary pressures. If that does happen, we may see, instead of a Fed rate cut, we could see a Fed rate hike. That would push the Fed, if Fannie Mae does do that, or Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, if those two GSEs begin doing that, getting into the home equity mortgage market, that would push the Fed to keep rates where they are, or maybe even raise the rates. So it's a very important thing that may or may not go on. We'll have to see if Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae do that, but we'll wait and see. But that's our survey for the month of June. And again, it's showing a weakness in the regional economy, weakness in the manufacturing economy. Until we meet again on the first business day of August, may your economic cup runneth over, and thank you.